Hello, my name is Tobias Heiler and I'm one of the founders of brainboost. In this webinar, we will show you our Auto Report 2.0. We will show you how it is structured and also how you can explain it to your clients. Have fun with it.
Welcome to the webinar, and today's topic, first of all, sorry, yes, our software connects to many different hardware manufacturers. If you know a manufacturer or a hardware you have laying around at home and you want to ask us, hey, maybe this would be cool to connect, please reach out to us. And of course, we're always in contact with different manufacturers to see if we can connect our software to them. Now, let's start. Today's topic is the Auto Report 2.0. So people that have been using our software know you can easily create a report with just one click. And we did a major update to our Auto Report, and this is what we call a 2.0. And as you can see here, many different colors and bars and heads and everything. So I will explain a few things and also guide you a little bit through the process, especially how I pitch it or explain it to my clients. So what part of the Auto Report is important maybe for a first glance to get an overview, and what part of the report might be a rather detailed part. So first of all, last webinar, if you watched it, I explained this dashboard. And within this dashboard, where we also get a first glance of some topics and some EEG categories, there's a button that says Generate Auto Report, the red one here. And if you press that one, you can generate an auto report. So the dashboard, of course, consists of parts you will see in the auto report, but the auto report will, of course, have more details, and you can obviously print it out or send it via email. And today is about the auto report. Very important. And I know regular people that watch this webinar regularly, they know this slide. When you do an EEG recording, this is where it all starts with. It needs to be a nice quality, of course. And depending on how many channels your EEG device has, you get a certain length or intensity of a report. So if you have a device that has, for example, 4 channels, this mapping here, the mid-lane mapping, makes a lot of sense because some categories depend on, for example, frontal and central part of the brain. So if we're missing one of those positions, then we're not able to create certain categories. Here, for example, and you see, oh, this is new. If people have 8-channel devices, what we can do, and we're working on this, now it's January 2025, so whenever you're watching this, it might already be implemented, a feature that if, for example, you're measuring the frontal lobe, the central, and then P3, P4 instead of PZ, then we are able to calculate backup calculations. So kind of see, okay, a category is based on PZ, but you actually had P4 and P3 that you measured. We might be able to calculate what could have been in between. Of course, it's a back and forth. If you didn't actually measure a certain position, then we can approximately, or kind of not guess, but calculate what should have been there. And of course, if you have the full amount, then of course we have all the data we need for all categories. The next slide is also familiar. We like to measure, work with our flows. So we have a standardized procedure. The minimum requirement you need is this for the full Auto Report 2.0. We need an eyes open segment, we need eyes closed, and we need CPT and Stroop test. If you are missing one of those, for example, like this, of course, we can still create a report, but maybe some things, or not maybe, some things are going to be missing on the report because we simply don't have the results of a certain test. Also, why I would like you, if possible, to also use a flow that also has the eyes open and eyes closed after the test is, at this point, the auto report doesn't use this part, but of course, once we hand out a new template that might say, okay, eyes open before stressor, so cognitive test, and eyes open after, then if you already have that recording, we can go through older recordings and just create new templates and new reports. So try to at least get this one for the report I'm going to show you today. Okay. Once you hit that button, I will show you in a second, and I'm going to share my brain assistant. You have these 3 options, and of course over time they will get different names, or maybe there will be a 4th version. So these are 3 different versions of the report. I would recommend to use either the full report or the short report, because the classic full report was an older version that still has nice categories, but it doesn't have these topics that I put up here. And the new version, full or short report, they have these topics, and they consist of certain mix of those cognitive tests and also of EEG stats. So I would recommend to use these full report and short report, and even if you're missing CPT and Stroop test, still you can use these templates. It will look nice. Now, I would say, let's go. I'm going to share my screen, my brain assistant, and guide you through the process. So let's assume we did a recording with a flow. If you don't know how to do that, watch prior webinars. And I'm going to go here. I know it's all German here, the description, but it's all about the EEG data. So let's get rid of the comments. This is the dashboard. Last webinar was about the dashboard. So if you're not sure about that, go watch it. We have a new feature here. It says artifacts. The artifacts indicator show we have some artifacts, which is normal. People move, people blink. So don't be scared by that. If it's red and it says too many artifacts, you can always create, or almost always create, a report. But of course, you should at least then question how is the, how valid is the report if there are a lot of artifacts in there. Yeah, to create an artifact, press generate auto report. Usually it automatically marks artifacts, and then we just press full report. Now it's generating a report, and this might take 10-15 seconds, also depending on how many artifacts, what computer you have, how many channels of course you have. And after a few seconds it will open automatically a PDF file. So it might pop up on a second screen if this is where maybe your PDF reader is. And now we have the report. So let's go through the report. What is important? We have, of course, a cover page, and then we have some basic information. Important, I think, is the name of the trainer. So the next time they come to you in a practice, maybe you have multiple trainers, they can say, yeah, this was the person that did the test with me. So it's also nice to have some information about that. And then this is, in my opinion, the most important part for a client. So let's assume you have a client, they come to you the first time. So you talk about their situation, their training goals, stuff like that. And then you do a measurement. Maybe right after the measurement, you do a very short session. So you show them, this is neurofeedback. This is what we're going to do the next, 10, 20 sessions. And then let's talk about the results. If you talk about the results, things need to be understandable. So all people that watch this and are familiar with neurofeedback, they know alpha, theta, gamma, beta, all this stuff is completely new to a client that comes to you the first time. So if you go right into, here, theta beta ratio, they have no idea what you're talking about. Not even probably what a ratio is. So if we go way too fast into detail, they will not really understand, and it's just going to be more question marks than answers in their head. So this is why we have these 3 pages. Let me zoom out. So here, 1 page with 2 topics, cognition and focus. Then we have calmness and creativity, and regeneration and sensory processing. And this is understandable. I mean, somebody should know, how do I pitch focus to a person? If not, here's a text that also explains in a simple matter what is, maybe cognition is not so clear. What did we measure here? What is this about? Reasoning, problem solving, and decision making. And these topics, they consist of certain parts of a test, CPT test and Stroop test. If you're not familiar with it, there are other webinars about that. CPT test is a reaction test. You have an Xbox controller, you press when you see a circle, you don't press when you see a square. And Stroop is where you see a word written in a certain color, and you have to navigate to the correct color it is written in. If you've never done it before, do it. It's quite exciting. And so these topics consist of tests. So no EEG data involved in these tests. Of course, we measure an EEG while doing the test, but here it's just about, as you see here, should press reaction time. So how fast were you when there was a circle, and reaction time in a Stroop. This, for example, consists of CPT commission error, CPT omission error, Stroop reaction time. So different parts. Here it's twice the Stroop reaction time, so but basically makes sense. And also part of the score of focus is EEG based. Also, we have some tips how to improve this area. So you can easily discuss this and pitch it to a client and say, take a look. We are in the yellow area. We're not completely, rock bottom here, but this is something you told me you have attention problems. So yeah, cognition and focus is a little tricky. We're in the yellow area. We have some bars where we're here in detail. I'm not going to explain it completely in detail, but we're in a yellow greenish area, which is nice. But there is something based on EEG where we're completely in the red area. It's not super bad because overall your focus is in the middle and you came to me because you have problems focusing. So you can, I think in a nice manner say, you see you have some good categories, somewhere you're maybe not performing super well, but overall your focus, there's room for improvement. And it's also a good thing if we find something that is not everything at 100 maxed out in the blue. So blue is the last 10% in the blue area, because you kind of want to train something. You want to improve at something. And of course you want, we want to be good at something. So also if we find something that looks nice, it's in a green area, then you can also point out, oh, very nice, you see, this is something where you're good at. So these pages, they are critical, I think, to pitch to clients. And this is what we designed them also from the wording, that you still, if somebody wants to do a deep dive, you can still see, okay, theta, maybe you read something about it. I will come to that point. But overall, usually I give my clients just this overview. What comes after this overview of these 6 topics? Side note, if we have certain positions, right? I talked about the mapping. So if you maybe just have FZ, CZ, PZ, then some of these parts might be missing. For example, here, frontal alpha asymmetry. For that, we need F3 and F4, correct? So if we now have this mapping, just as an information, we are missing F3 and F4. So of course, then this category is not complete, so this will drop out. So just try at home, whatever device you have. Of course, this might not be, there might not be all 6 categories, but sometimes you don't even need all of them, just letting you know. And then after these categories, what else can you print? Of course, here is some basic info, brain maps, spectrograms, and of course a disclaimer. So, I'm not going to press one button and then I'm not going to press one button, create an auto report, and then suddenly, I have a diagnosis or whatever. No, you still need to see a person. So I print this out. And then frequency bands. So frequency bands, what is theta, alpha, beta? Might be interesting. Of course, we also have flyers, info material that we can hand out, but still, it's nice to have this on one page. And then that's basically it. This is until page 9, or sometimes it's 10. This is what I print out and hand to clients. Why? And now let's go to the correct page. This is what I hand out my client. This is a very solid, report. We have a cover, we have some info, and then we have these here, 6 topics. If we have a full qEEG recording, if we're missing some positions, then this might be less, of course, a disclaimer and infos. This is something a client that has just been with you for 1.5 hours can process. This is something somebody can take home and can say, okay, I get it here. I have some room for improvement, some deficits, and this is what we can work on. Of course, you're going to have some questions about the subcategories, but this is, I think, a fair amount of a report you can hand out to a client. But let's continue. What else is in the box? If you now say, okay, what else do we see? Our report, the Auto Report 2.0, includes Z-scores. So this is, of course, this is a 24-channel recording. If you have less positions, then it will be less positions you will see here. But we see here Z-scores, EO for eyes open. So we have the absolute Z-scores. We have eyes open relative Z-scores. I'm not going to explain what relative or absolute Z-scores are. It's about the report today. I know, I'm sorry. I know a lot of people will have questions now. Z-scores eyes closed and relative Z-scores eyes closed. So, and you get my idea, hopefully. If I hand this to a client, I know it's fancy, but in the first session they see you handing out all crazy colored heads, might be a little bit too much. This is why we created the topics, to keep things simple and straightforward. And of course, the next session, they can ask us, what else do you have? But for you, this is very interesting, I think. Then we have the classic brain mapping data. So relative power eyes open, relative power eyes closed, power eyes closed. Also, this is the scaling. These are min to max scaling, automatic scaling within one click. So of course, people that have been in a mentoring supervision session with me know I like to also take a look at this manually, change the scaling a little bit to get more info. But of course, this is a one-click report. So maybe this is sometimes perfect scaling, sometimes there's room for improvement. Now we go to FFT analysis. People that work with me know I like the FFT. And here we have two, I would say, nice or prominent positions, ZZ and PZ. Here we see the eyes open segment, and right underneath we see EC for eyes closed. We also see the alpha peak that goes between 8 to 13 Hertz. So we see here we have an alpha peak of 9, and this is the alpha 1 area. And we see here it is also 9.0. We see theta beta ratio. Why is there not FZ? I know in the dashboard it is, but if you have a lot of blinking artifacts, this might also be a little compromised. So I know maybe there will be a report with also FZ. And then we see eyes closed. So it might be interesting for a first glance. And now we get into detail. And I think these categories are very, very nice to see. These are very... Also, they explain a lot of things. Maybe with the client, the second, third, fourth time they come to you, can also go over these. And now here, this is a nice feature. Here you see if I move my mouse on top of overview, my mouse cursor, it changes. Let me press it. You can jump to the topics. And from the topic, if you want to go to a certain here, subscore or in EEG category, you can also jump back and forth. So if you maybe together with your client or you by yourself want to check this out and say, okay, where do I see, okay, theta beta ratio, it's part of focus. Okay, let me check it out. Then you're here. You also automatically get the according brain map. So first we see generally what is theta beta ratio. Also very important, where did we measure it? So FZ and ZZ. So if you just measure ZZ, this will not occur on your report. This will not be there because we need these two positions. Then we'll also explain, and this is now important, this score here, focus score, we always want to be at 100. This means basically this is the best we can reach. This would be blue, so the last 10% is blue. Red would be 0, or we cannot go in the minus, so 0 would be completely the least we can get to. And the base value, this is your actual value you had. So in this case, this person had a theta beta ratio of 1.2. So 1.2 pops out a certain here text box. If you are focus score below 1.5, indicates a healthy balance and so on. So this is why we're here. If you have a different one, if you have a higher theta beta ratio, for example 2 or something, you will be in a different area. And if you, for example, in yellow or red, you will have a different text box here. Now important, this is a ratio. So it's 1.2, for example. If we go to a different category, here, we take a look at, and it says here, the relative power. So this base value, 19.9 is percent. So of course, this is different, a ratio, theta beta ratio of 19.9 would be extremely high and alarming. So of course, here it's a different number, or it looks different. This is why also this brain map, it says theta, eyes open, but relative power scaled from 15% equals completely dark blue to 30% completely red. Why? We picked this scaling because of these references you can see, and also within the references there are more references. In this case, I know theta looks different, it's completely red, but here it is power, so amplitude square, so from min to max. So don't please be confused and say, why is theta so red here? Here it's not even, there's no red at all. It always depends on the scaling and what we display here. It will take some time to get used to all these categories, but once you scroll through them and you have the more clients you record, the more experience you will get. So now I'm gonna jump around a lot. You see a lot of categories. Of course, it's 24-channel recording. And what's next? After all these categories, we will find a Stroop test. We did cognitive tests here. Stroop test, if you don't remember what it is, do it a couple times, then you will, or you just read what the test is about. We see the categories: congruent, so red written in red color; incongruent, so blue written in green, for example; and neutral, the word table written in blue. I mean, the client did the test, so he should be able to remember, but of course you sometimes hand it out to maybe parents or a partner, you know, and it shows you the instruction, and then we see the test results. Here, for example, how you read this is the reaction time is on the y-axis. So we see a few times this person took more than 2 seconds to react, and then we see the color: congruent, so red written in red; neutral, table written in red; incongruent, red written in blue. And then we see a cross when the person pressed the wrong answer. We see 90 words, 30, 30, 30, and we see this person made 2 errors with words that were incongruent, and we see an average reaction time in seconds. Here we see green means you're within the z-scores. The Stroop test, CPT test, there's tons of studies on that, so it's pretty nice to have test results. So this is in a, I would say, normal range, and the same goes for CPT test. CPT test, you have to press or not press. See, the first one is a little slow. Maybe the person kind of had to get used to, oh, now the test is just started. There are different times in between new shown objects, like the circle and the square, of course, to mix it up a little bit. So once in a while there was an error, but no omission error, so never forgot to press this person. If you want to see one short example, here we go. I have a different recording. This is one client, but of course, different recordings. It's anonymous. And here we see, you can also see on the left side, if you just want a sneak peek, on the left side, you can see some test results. And here we go. This, for example, you see the Stroop test. The first half, also 2 seconds, is not super fast. But then after half of the turn, yeah, long reaction time and a lot of mistakes. So here, we don't even need an EEG. We can tell the person, it's a child, so I know you can tell the parents here after half of the test, maybe boring, maybe just too much, maybe stressful, maybe drifting off, explains a lot. So this is also maybe a good thing to print out and talk together with the topics about stuff like that, because it's understandable, it makes sense. Yes, and what comes after this? A ton of FFTs. You don't actually need to print this one out. But you know, for some people that like to have a very long report and all the FFTs and circle around and play Sherlock Holmes, then you can also print this out. But I mean, it's nice to have the FFTs. So what do we have? This is for the client, but you see there's a lot more: z-scores, relative power, FFT spectrum, EEG categories, a lot. Please go through them. They're very exciting. And the cognitive tests. Of course, you can always, and this is the full report. If you select the short report, there will be less in there. But you know, you can also just print parts of the report. I think this also works. Yes, of course, you can also send the report. If you send, as you see, the full report without any comment to a client, it will be, I think, too much, but it's up to you. But you see, the auto report gives you a lot of options. So it consists of understandable topics, z-scores, brain maps, EEG categories, cognitive tests, and a FFT spectrum. As I said, I just want to stress this a lot. It's important. It's a one-click report, right? You just saw it yourself. All you have to do is do a recording. Here it says too many artifacts. Still, it will create a report, but it just wants to tell you, and this we're just careful and transparent. If you press that magic button, it's just one click and you get all of this with one click. And of course, filtering out, it's possible, but just be aware. This is where we want to make you aware, not print it on the report. Might look a little funny if you give this to a client, but just want to make you aware. It's a one-click report. So of course, if you work through things by hand, then you can pay more attention to certain topics. This makes sense. But you can use this report to also, here for example, in this case, we see, okay, theta in the middle, theta beta ratio not too bad. Oh, focus score alpha 1, alpha 2. We're at 0, which is normal. We have to give a range from 2. And if you're below, then you're just outside the score. Be nice, explain to your clients in a nice way. But as always, when you try to test somebody in a certain category, you need to have ranges. And here, this gives you a hint. Okay, maybe I can take a closer look to this ratio. okay, there's a lot more alpha 1 than alpha 2. Where did we measure? What does this mean? And then the auto report gives you also a hint, maybe by hand, when I analyze by hand, go deeper with brain maps, which you can do, of course, in our software. Then I can pay close attention to alpha 1, alpha 2. So also with the auto report doesn't mean that you can create your own by hand. This might give you even a hint, where can I pay more attention to? And it's not always about the bad categories, of course. You can also say, oh, this is outstanding. This is pretty cool. I want to show this to my client. So it's not only being mean to your clients. Okay, so this is what you all get by one click. And you can repeat it, of course, if you feel the signal quality wasn't nice. Then you can also repeat the recording or compare it, whatever you like. Okay, today I'm on time. This is very nice. Now, what is next? And this is what the next webinar is going to be about. It's about customize your auto report. There's a lot of colors, a lot of categories. Of course, some people said, how about simple things like here the page number, but of course here it says brain boost, brain boost, brain boost. Can I put my own logo in the report? Can I maybe write my own text right after the cover? It starts. But what about if I say, hey, I want to make the auto report personal, so I'm going to write a short text, and I want to insert an image to make it look like this is my my clinic, my practice, where I also did different other tests that I want to implement. So you never have to build a report either completely automatic and then you're not going to be able to change anything, or completely start from zero. So you have the option to customize your auto report. So use this as a template, which is already pretty intense, and then add certain things. Maybe also take out certain things. You don't need to always create just a template we deliver. So this is what the next webinar is going to be about, that make nice changes that will have a huge impact. And feel free also to do maybe a hybrid auto report. And yes, this is the next webinar. It's February 27th, so not too long of a break for me and for you, and hope to see you there in the next time.